Hey, everybody, and welcome back to Inside the Force. Dave Cottingham here with Cody Geiler. How are you, sir?
Hey, doing good. 2 weeks in a row.
I know, right? But it sucks you're not in the studio with me here.
I know. Sorry, I'm home.
Yeah.
And we're recording a little bit later
Yes.
because last week I was a little bit sick, but good to go. Ready to talk some Star Wars.
Good to go. Unfortunately, our third leg here, Casey, is dealing with selling his house, so he's got a lot to do this week. But he'll be back on, I'm guessing, next week where we start moving on to the next film. But right now, as we continue, we'll keep pushing that it's our journey now to the Rise of Skywalker. Fitting enough.
It never gets old hearing that title.
Yes.
Sorry. It just never gets old.
That's true. And it's taken me a while to actually put the in there. I keep wanting to say Rise of Skywalker, but it's the Rise of Skywalker. It revealed fittingly on May the 4th, this past weekend, that not this past weekend, but actually it's been a little minute since we released right before May the 4th last time. But anyway, they released the whole lineup of the novel, literature that's the journey to Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker, which we'll go through. But that was a big reveal within the last week. So we are talking about our journey, which is really the connectivity of the previous Skywalker films, the episodes 1 through 8, and how they're connecting to episode 9 and what we feel like is going to be the prevalent characters and themes that we'll see in 9. We've got a big one to talk about this episode. I'm really excited about this, and I know you're a big fan of this too. Cody is really the centered discussion around the prophecies and the main prophecy, which we'll talk about a lot today.
Definitely. I mean, that's the thing is, like, we talk about the journey that we're taking to the Rise of Skywalker. I mean, you go back and look, and now, we talked a little bit last week about the trailer again, and just how it really does now connect us back to the prequel trilogy, not just the original trilogy.
Right.
And it's just kind of fun because, we all come from different sort of walks of life, but, I grew up a little bit more with the prequel trilogy. So it's just kind of fun to go back to episode 1 and look at that again, and with a new lens.
Absolutely. And I tell you what, like, we talked about it a little bit in the last episode, but I did finally finish Master and Apprentice. And I mean, that story, which I thought was fantastic. I really, really enjoyed that book. I mean, Claudia Gray is, man, I think, I got to say, I might put her on the top of the list of the novels that I've read from her. I mean, they've all been top notch. I mean, obviously Timothy Zahn's up there with the Zahn, or the Thrawn stuff that's coming. But it's like with Leia, with Lost Stars, Bloodline, and now Master and Apprentice. Like, man, those are 4 fantastic novels. And Master and Apprentice, that whole story coming out, it's like, man, I have a different perspective of episode 1.
Yeah,
with that relationship.
It really does make you almost want to go back and watch Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan together, because, I mean, you talked about it a little bit last week, how cool it is to see these stories about just a Master and Apprentice, and how interesting it is to see some of the inner workings of the Jedi and the Jedi Order, and how Jedi train Padawans and apprentices and things like that. So, I mean, I love the book too. And it was really cool. I mean, I know some people listening may not have read it. Definitely recommend you read it.
Yeah.
I guess at some point we'll maybe talk spoilers of it, so I won't spoil anything from the book for anybody who's looking forward to it. But there's really great stuff in there, and there's just really awesome quotes from, like, Qui-Gon that maybe at one point we can bring up.
Yes.
Because it's really awesome.
It really is. And I think, definitely, I think maybe when the 3 of us are on here, I think we can definitely break that down a little bit more and talk spoilers. But I think the big key to me that, not spoiler, but the big key I took from that, and I'm taking from, I'm about halfway through Dooku right now. I mean, one of the big things I've taken away from that is is that the Jedi, with all the stuff that's happening, the experience that Qui-Gon's had with that novel, and then the experience I'm reading or I'm listening to, hearing Dooku as a young initiate, which is a weird term that they've brought into. You're a youngling, I guess. You're initiate before you're a Padawan.
Yeah, it's cool. It's interesting. And then I didn't know that this was a thing before, the creches. So I guess it's the groupings of younglings.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was a term that was just used in Expanded Universe or on like Wikipedia, but I never heard it actually spoken because I'm doing the audiobooks as well.
Yeah.
So it's interesting to hear them talk about the creches, the groups of younglings that are like together.
Yes. But so what I've taken away from a lot of these experiences right now is that, I mean, the Jedi are more. I feel like I've gotten we've really truly humanized them a little bit more. Like because there is, and I say that because when episode 1 came out, the only thing we knew about Jedi really were what we got in the original trilogy, and obviously the expanded universe. Not much, because the expanded universe really centered around the original trilogy, right? So you still didn't have the Jedi Order. We really didn't dive into the Jedi Order until episode 1 came out, and I feel like they were viewed, or the perception of Jedi were these like superheroes, that they had these powers, and it was like Superman. They were all about truth and justice and serving the good and peace, and so you had this big. At least I put this big aura around them, like they're what we strive to be, right? But these books, these novels, these stories now are really kind of humanizing a little bit, because there's a lot of struggle there. There's a lot of the whole detachment from family, the choices of right and wrong. Is the council doing the right thing? I don't think they are, and I believe in this, and it's not really what they. It's like there's a lot of issues there, I guess, which obviously lends itself to great storytelling. But I don't know how you felt about that, but we're getting a more in-depth look at the struggles within the Jedi, not just the galaxy itself. You know what I mean?
Well, I mean, it's really cool. You're talking about the Dooku audiobook, and so I listened to that as well. And I think it's crazy how much you also look at, like, it almost makes Dooku's motivations it makes sense, because you're saying, not to give away the story, but Dooku struggles with that whole idea of clashing with the Jedi Council and family, and what that means to hold on to that versus to put that aside to become a Jedi. And even him and Qui-Gon have different ways of looking at potentially disagreeing with the Council.
Right.
Obviously Dooku trained Qui-Gon, and so he probably learned a lot from him, and was always someone that was very curious and questioned a lot, as opposed to just doing exactly what they were told. But they ended up in two very different places, where we see Dooku in episode 2. But I mean, it's so cool to get Dooku a lot more of his backstory. Definitely, as we gear up for the rest of the movies we're going to look at, I think that audiobook could not come out at a better time when we move into this next month for episode 2.
Yes.
Which we could probably talk a lot more in depth about then.
We will.
But yeah.
No, it's perfect. And I was listening to it, partially today. I'm in the car, and I thought to myself, like, wow, this is the 20th anniversary of episode 1. And we're just now getting this story of Master and Apprentice, 20 years later. You almost think like that's something that you would have thought about putting out, around when the prequel trilogy was out. And then, like you said, we're starting to get his backstory. And, episode 2 came out in 2001 or 2002. So it's like, all these years later, we're now starting to get these backstories. And it does, and we've said it 100 times, it does change the perception of these films. And when you have that kind of those stories to fall back on in these characters, because it surprisingly fits, what's happening in these movies, which is pretty incredible what they've done.
Very, very incredible. I mean, I'm just super pleased with the books right now, especially.
Yeah, and I'm finding myself just diving straight into these prequel stories. Even Queen Shadow, is very political, but is very good. And there's that group of, I think, fans that are all about the Civil War and the original trilogy, and it's like, but I am definitely at heart, I am all about the Jedi Order and the finding out what like them figuring out the Sith and how they came to be, and what this whole, again, because it's crazy. Again, I keep thinking, like, when I hear it in these books, like, oh, they've been extinct for millennia, they're not around. It's like, man, they've been hidden for 1,000 years, and they have no idea what's coming. It's like, it's pretty crazy to think. It's awesome.
Yeah, very, very awesome. And the Sith, it's crazy how little we know about the Sith. And diving into Dooku, they start to peel back the layers.
Yes.
Of the Sith, and I'm excited to see what else we'll get to see in any of the other books they come out with. Yeah. And then going into episode 9, Rise of Skywalker, I think we're going to learn even more because of Palpatine's involvement. So,
right, and just as much as I'm like you mentioned, I said, just as much as I'm interested in other Master and Apprentice stories throughout the ages of Jedi, like, I am super excited too to learn how they hid themselves for 1,000 years. Like, what were those two Sith doing? While they were hiding, they obviously didn't just sit in a room and train. They were out there doing things. So that's a whole nother side that I'm interested in too. Like, were they training each? What knowledge were they learning from? And it's just pretty remarkable. There's all kinds of stuff you can go for that. So anyway, we're looking forward to all that stuff. But as we transition into we talk about literature here. Like I said on the Star Wars Day, the whole publishing program was released by Lucasfilm on May the 4th. Their journey to Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker, very similar to what they've done for Episode 7 and 8. And starting right off the top, we'll just start from the top and just go through and get our thoughts on it. But the big adult novel that's being released, which is coming out November 12th, which is, if you remember, November 12th is the launch date of Disney+. So on the same day you're getting The Mandalorian, you're getting this novel. And this is a novel called Resistance Reborn by Rebecca Roanhouse. And the description, really brief, is that Poe Dameron, General Leia Organa, Rey, and Finn must struggle to rebuild the Resistance after their defeat at the hands of the First Order in Star Wars: The Last Jedi. So I'm assuming, Cody, that we're getting somewhat of the gap between 8 and 9 in this novel.
Yeah, I hope so. I think that's great, and I think it makes a ton of sense. I read into some of the things that we even see here. There's they put like the book cover up here, and it's got, Poe is sort of featured as this larger portrait of him with Leia beside him, and then we've got Rey and Finn down below as well. Right. And I think it'll be really interesting to see, because we were hinting at that at the end of The Last Jedi, that Leia makes that comment of like, "What are you looking at me? Follow him." Like almost this pass off from Leia to Poe. And I think because of where we're at in the story and with what happened, unfortunately, to Carrie Fisher, maybe we'll see a little bit more in the Resistance, how that leadership role either changes or shifts. And then hopefully, ultimately, just I'm excited to see more Leia in this book. They'll have a lot of opportunity to really explore her in a way that, obviously we just can't, unfortunately, with the movie, because they don't have the footage of her.
Right.
Or new scenes. So, this is really awesome, because I think we all thought we might get more Leia stuff in books. They may go back and tell stories. I just didn't think that we'd get it this soon,
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, I'm with you. I think that's a very good point about Poe's portrait there. I think you're right. I think think it is a handoff. I think we're going to see him more of a commanding role in episode 9. I think maybe he's not General, Dameron yet, but what is command? Oh, he was already commander, I think, right?
He was commander, but he got demoted in The Last Jedi.
Yeah.
But then at the end, she was kind of cool with him again. So I don't know where he's at.
I don't know if there's a rank above commander besides general, because all those, like Leia or Luke was Commander Skywalker before he was general. I guess I don't know. So I don't know if there's a. I could see him being general in this, though. To be honest, I mean Leia taking a kind of a back seat once it gets rebuilt. But we'll see. The next kind of a young adult novel that's coming out, which is called Force Collector. This is interesting. This actually takes place around right before The Force Awakens. It's a restless teenager sets out to discover what connection his mysterious Force powers have to the fabled Jedi and what the Force has in store for him. So it's about a story about a Force sensitive written by Kevin Schnick. And that comes out November 19th. Not bad. I mean, I'll probably listen to it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm excited about most of these the 3 or 4 like major larger books that are like children's books. This one is the most intriguing to me. I think more so not necessarily like the one that I'm looking forward to the most, but like I'm just kind of like I'm a little bit shocked, to be honest, that of course we've got these stories about Kanan, Ezra, Ahsoka, in the Clone Wars, of other Jedi, other Force users that lived throughout either the original trilogy or now we're getting our first character in the sequel trilogy era who, I got to reread this little blurb. He is Force sensitive, right? What connection his mysterious Force powers have to the fabled Jedi and what the Force has in store for him. So, I mean, he's clearly Force sensitive. There's another image of the book. He's carrying around some artifacts and things. He's got a lightsaber sticking out of the bag.
Yep.
He's got a gaffy stick, so that he's been, I'm assuming, to Tatooine, unless maybe we've got Tusken Raiders on other planets.
Looks like it's the testing probe droid kind of thing.
Oh, in the back of the backpack.
In the backpack, so.
And is that maybe a holocron sticking out of the top?
I think it might be, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a little bit shocked that we have this Force sensitive character running around somewhere around The Force Awakens, and like, are we going to see this character pop up in the Rise of Skywalker?
That's what I'm thinking. I think it's a backstory to a character that could possibly show up, on Rey's side as maybe one of the students or somebody that she's found and trained. Because I still got to believe that there's other people that are Force sensitive just because of that last hint at the end of episode 8, that there is some Force sensitive people that they've collected to help out with the Resistance in rebuilding the Resistance. So
when this first came out, before I'd kind of really read through the blurb, it came out, and I think I got a text from Casey, and I was like, "Who is this Force user?" And he just responded that it was Broom Boy from the end of The Last Jedi. But he said that like jokingly.
Yeah.
And then obviously you look at it, and it takes place during The Force Awakens, so it's not possible. But I was like, oh my goodness, if that is Broom Boy from The Last Jedi, that would be hilarious.
But yeah, it looks like it's on a desert planet. Could be
similar
Jakku,
to the
could
one
be
in the
Tatooine.
trailer.
Yeah, I mean, it could be the one on the trailer. Actually, yeah, you're right. Could be somebody that they come across searching, that planet or something like that. That's true. It's
also weird is like his what he's wearing on the picture and his arm wrappings they look like they're black, and they kind of have that ribbed look, which it looks a lot like what Kylo's like a shirt looks like, and I'm just like I'm just so confused.
I know.
Like, was this one of Luke's students? I don't know. A lot of questions.
Man, that's good too. Yeah, that's good. Moving forward, let's see. Marvel Comics is obviously coming out with some stuff. They're coming out with Star Wars Allegiance, which is a comic series by Ethan Sachs, artist Luke Ross. This is looks like a 4-issue run starting in October. And the brief description is on the run since the destruction of Starkiller Base. Leia and the remaining handful of Resistance have barely managed to survive, much less strike back against the superior forces of the First Order. Running low on options, Leia decides to reach out to her former allies, the Mon Calamari, whose shipyards once powered the Rebel Alliance. So this has got to be obviously after 8 as well. So this is during that period. So of course I'm going to read that.
No, for sure. Yeah, Mon Cal.
Yeah,
yes,
no.
please.
Lots of children's books, like you just mentioned. You know, little golden books are putting out stuff. What else on this list, Cody? Do you got your eye on?
I mean, some of the children's books are interesting just because you see a little bit of the artwork. You can kind of see some of the characters. But there's a book that I always get for every movie. I guess if we want to skip down a bit, I love the art of books.
Yeah. Oh man.
Those are like my favorite. You get to see a lot of the concept art that some of the artists work on, and a lot of this concept art literally ends up looking like what you see in the movie. So it's really cool to see like the early iterations of how it changes and what stuff actually stuck. But the front cover of this one gives us a little, it's awesome. It gives us a little bit of tease of the Rise of Skywalker, and it's got it's kind of split in the middle. On the top side, we see Rey with her lightsaber, pointed down, clashing with Kylo, and Kylo is upside down with his lightsaber clashing with her, and she's on this like what looks like a red, maybe lava planet, and he's in this like bluish looking water or something. I don't know.
It's total
really
contrast
cool.
and mirror contrast is what it looks like. It's because she's got the blue saber with the red background. He's got the red saber with the bluish background. They're kind of in the same stance. Yeah, it's a phenomenal piece of art. So it makes you wonder what kind of reference that's making, obviously, to the movie. Is it obviously it's not probably practical, but it's visually it's like, they're definitely mirrors of each other. Does that mean they're related? That means they're, I don't know. It's all kinds of things you can think about there.
Yeah, it's awesome. And these books are cool too because besides just the really interesting artwork, they have, there's writing in it. So, somebody writes it, and there's usually little blurbs they pull from the artists and stuff that they end up getting from, like JJ in The Force Awakens was a part of that one, and then they had stuff from Rian Johnson in The Last Jedi. So you get to learn about a little bit of the pre-production and production side of the movie through some of the artwork. So I always like those. Yeah,
it's phenomenal. And then I'll piggyback right off of you. The book that I'm obviously interested in too is the visual dictionary. I've got the visual dictionary of all the other films that's come out these past few years, and most of them, I think all of them, have been written by Pablo Hidalgo, and it's unbelievable how much detail it goes into everything that's in these movies. So that one is, it's a 200-page guide to Rise. And obviously, this doesn't come out until the day of the movie. So, as with most of these books, the art book you mentioned is December 20th as well. But there's also a magazine, the official movie special. It's like a Titan magazine's putting something out. And then the only other thing for me is the updated version. If you didn't see the updated version of Ultimate Star Wars, it's the new edition. I actually have the original edition, which came out right before it came out. I think I got it at Celebration in 2015, because it was the first, encyclopedia after the new canon was established. So it's been about 4 years now. They got the new edition coming out. Vader's on the cover. It comes out actually October 4th, which is great because I want to get that. I'm wondering how much of Rise of Skywalker is actually in it, because they got to put some stuff in there. But
oh yeah, but it comes out in October. That's a good point.
Right.
Yeah.
So I'm surprised that it's actually that early because it's not going to probably contain a lot of stuff in there.
It does say a sneak peek at Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker at the bottom of the description. So that'd be cool. That'd be awesome. Yeah.
Yeah. If I remember, if I glance at Ultimate again, if I remember the original Ultimate, I think there were some things from, brief descriptions a little bit from Force Awakens, like, characters and stuff like that. I remember there was actually some stuff in there from Rebels that in the new season that hadn't come out yet. So, there's a little bit. It's nothing that really gives anything away, but it is some information. So there might be some things in there. That's what they're talking about, maybe. So anyway, some great stuff like they did a couple years ago. I mean, comics, novels, young adult novels, stuff for kids. There's Spark of Resistance, which is again a middle grade novel. I mean, they're hitting every age like they normally do. But this is different. This is the culmination of the entire Star Wars Skywalker saga. So this is going to be some incredible stories that are really coming to a halt and setting up this last chapter. So it's pretty crazy. We're going to be reading a lot of stuff over the next few months.
Yeah, there's a ton of stuff coming in October, and then especially November. You mentioned that 1 week when some of these books release in November, we're going to have the Mandalorian and the video game, Fallen Order. It's like, I don't know what I'm going to do during that week.
I think I might have to just, hold off on all my vacation and just put it off till first 2 weeks of December, man. It's got a lot to do. Plus we got to do a show still to get ready for the movie. Okay, so that's the publishing program. Of course, we'll talk more about that as the upcoming releases come out. And the next novel, I will say, I'm excited about. That's after I get through Dooku is coming out in June. Really, here in a couple weeks, is Alphabet Squadron. And I'm not sure if I read this a while ago or if I just didn't know, but it's actually, I read a brief description about it coming out, and it is set during or right after Return of the Jedi. For some reason, I had thought maybe it's during the original trilogy, but it is after Return of the Jedi. And Harrison Dulles is in charge of this squadron, and it's a trilogy actually of books that are coming for that. So I'm excited about it, and it's done by Alexander Freed, who wrote the Rogue One novelization, which I thought was phenomenal. So anyway, excited about that in a couple weeks. You gonna hit that one up?
Yeah, I'll probably check it out. I don't know if I'll do it on like release day, like I did for Master Apprentice and Dooku. I was really interested in, like you had mentioned before, about the Jedi. So I'll probably look into the audiobook version of it. Are they doing an audiobook of it?
Oh yeah.
Okay,
I've already
pre-ordered
that. Yeah,
I'll probably do that then.
Yeah. So that's coming out. And then some brief news before we hit up our topic. Congratulations to the Star Wars show. They actually won an Emmy. So congratulations to them. Their first ever. They've been going to the Emmys, I think, for the past couple of years, but have fallen short. They won for Outstanding Daytime Promotional Announcement - Topical. And it was for their Arrested Development piece that was done by Ron Howard. So anyway, they went up against some pretty stiff competition with American Ninja Warrior, Ellen DeGeneres, The View. Lifetime had a 24th annual Stop Breast Cancer for Life campaign. They beat some incredible competition to win that Emmy. So congratulations to that team.
It's awesome.
Yeah, Star Wars show. Who would have thought, right? Emmy award winners. Okay, so other than that, let's see. Brief. Did you see? You had to have seen that remake, right? Obi-Wan Vader remake.
Oh yeah, definitely.
I mean,
now there was one that was done a little while back, if I'm not wrong. Like, is this is the second?
No. So what you saw was just a brief clip. That's because it's from the same fight.
Okay, so this is just the full.
This is the full version now.
Okay,
they were working on it for like a year.
I thought part of it was familiar, and I was like, I've seen part of this before.
Yes.
And when I watched it, I was like, this looks like it's like much more detailed.
Yes. So they increased and made it fit into the movie somehow. So before, I think before there was literally just like a 10-second clip of the hallway fight when they were kind of moving real fast. And because I remember seeing that like a year ago and thinking, wow, that was pretty neat. I wonder, but there was nothing said of it, like if they were making a whole thing. But now they released the entire clip that made it fit into the movie. I was blown away. I mean, a lot of people are saying that it doesn't really do much to it, but I am so for them actually doing something like this. I know, like get Ewan McGregor, dress him up, and get Hayden Christensen in the Vader outfit and have him fight.
That'd be awesome. I mean, it's crazy because like you see Rogue One, and you realize we never really saw Vader at his full potential in live action form, and then you see this, and it's like I mean, I think George has even said it. The reason why the prequels and why it's evolved over time. He first started with Luke, and he told him he had to hold the lightsaber with two hands. It was this heavy weapon, and then you go to this point where we've got Ray Park and choreographed lightsaber fight scenes, and it's like if George had the means back then, he probably would have done a really interesting choreographed fight scene between the two.
Yeah, and but it makes you wonder too, like back then, how much he fully wrapped his head around the fighting styles, because back then in the 70s it was fencing. They took fencing lessons, so it looks like just an old school fence fight, whereas I think his name was Nick Gilliard or something like that, which is a stunt coordinator for the prequels. He brings him in. It's like, well, how can we make these guys fight? And it's like he does the flips and the hand gestures with the sabers, and of course you got Ray Park that comes in there that can do all that. So he adds his flavor, his martial arts flavor to it. So then it kind of evolves into this, where But I think it's always been known that there were different forms of Jedi fighting, right? So what were those forms? What they look like? And I think, and it's cool because every Jedi has a unique way, just based on their physical ability, what they can do. But to see someone like Ray Park and Ewan McGregor in Episode 1, it's like, guys, this is what happens when you train to fight like this, and to have that experience, and then like you said in Rogue One, see Vader move like that, and then all of a sudden you go to this. It is kind of unfortunately, it's kind of let down, but you do something like this, it changes that perception of those characters. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think it does change your perception. I mean, I think there's always times for, I think, using those kind of tools. You look back at the Rebels episode with Obi-Wan and Maul, and how they really did a more understated. Obi-Wan was obviously wiser. He fights Maul completely differently than he did in the Phantom Menace. Mm-hmm. And it works really well because he's patient, but Maul is still the same. Maul tries the same move on him, and Obi-Wan, has evolved, and he recognizes it, and, he's able to beat him because, he's learned from his past, whereas Maul hasn't. So, but I think with Obi-Wan and Vader, their relationship is it's different, and they both are really powerful force users.
Really powerful, yeah.
So, I don't know. I enjoyed it. I thought it was really cool. I just like really when you see their like lightsabers clash, and stuff, and you see like the lightsabers like hitting the walls and everything. I just think it's awesome.
But it goes back to a little bit too. The last thing I'll say about it is, when I remember seeing an interview with George when he was talking about, they were younger then, and now they're older. But age is, you can make that argument that they've been dormant. The Vader hasn't fought a lightsabered person in a while. I don't know. We don't know. I mean, he was in the Rebels fighting Ahsoka, so that was only like a few years before this. Obi-Wan has been kind of dormant. He hasn't really fought anybody. But you get back to realism too. Is like both. I think Alec Guinness. David Prowse was younger, I guess, in the suit. But Alec Guinness was an older person. He was much older than what Obi-Wan actually represented in that movie. Because now that we know that he was like 24 in episode 1, that means he was 56. He would be 56 in episode 4. But I think Guinness was a lot older than that. I think he was in his high 60s at that point. Just like, when we see Sebastian Shaw at the end of A Return of the Jedi, when Vader takes the mask off, like, he's an older man, and even though he's only supposed to be in like his mid 40s, Sebastian Shaw, I think, was in his 60s when he played that character. You know what I mean? So it's like ages. It was kind of miscasted in a sense, but back then, obviously, George didn't really know, I guess, timelines fully. But but so what I'm saying is that in episode 4, they're not that old. They would still move pretty well. Like we saw Qui-Gon move really well in episode 1. He's probably in his late 40s or 50s then. It's like, power, plus they have the Force with them, like you said, and the dark side. It's like that would make them move, So it makes sense to me that would be the way they would move around. But of course, I know Lucasfilm ain't going to go back and do anything with that, so...
I mean, there's some things they do where they kind of go over the top with some of the Force powers and throwing things, but there's parts of it that look amazing,
You're right. Yes, definitely there's some of that you can get rid of. It's really just the speed, that they hit and the aggressiveness that they hit the sabers with. And I'm looking it up just to make sure I'm right. But so Sebastian Shaw, who I think that was right? That was Sebastian Shaw. That was in Vader. That was Vader, right? Anyway, Al Guinness.
You're talking about David Prowse or like Anakin?
No, Anakin.
Yeah.
So Al Guinness was, when they filmed episode 4, he was 60. Looks like he was 67. No. What year was that? So they must have filmed that in 75, 76? So he was 64, 63, 64 whenever he filmed that. Whereas Obi-Wan was like 54 or something like that, right? Is that what we said? Something like that. So, again, a little bit off. But that was... and then Sebastian Shaw, trying to look up his age real quick. He was born in 1905, which means by 82 when they filmed that movie, 81. Gosh, he was 79 years old. Is that right? Yeah. So, So much older. Anakin was only supposed to be in his 40s at that point. You know what I mean? So,
yeah,
he actually would have looked more like Hayden Christensen than what he looked like in that movie. But who's counting? Whatever,
It's movies.
It's movies.
I believed it when I saw it.
Yeah, exactly. Same here. Okay, so real quick release dates for the new Star Wars films. Did you see that?
Yes.
So we're getting the next Star Wars film will be in December of 2022. So 3 years from this December. And then
so far away.
Yeah, I know. And then 2024, 2026. So 3 movies now, not guaranteed that they are all part of the same trilogy. Because right now, Bob Iger's been said that the first one is definitely Benioff and Weiss. That he didn't say whether or not all 3 were. So,
which is interesting because Rian Johnson's trilogy was announced first, or before theirs was. But you have to think that the timing is for a reason, and it's pretty impeccable. Don't have to turn this podcast into a Game of Thrones podcast, but with the final season wrapping up, obviously they wanted to potentially ride off the coattails of that.
Yes.
for better or worse currently. I still think the show as a whole is amazing, and we won't get into a Game of Thrones discussion.
Yeah.
But right now online, you don't have to go too far to find out that people are not as happy with the past couple episodes. But
Correct.
we'll leave the book open for the final episode, and still really excited to see what they can do in Star Wars. But still very interesting.
I just don't think it's possible. I just don't think it's possible that they would alternate every 2 years. Well, so like because like there was a rumor or a note I read that the first movie is Benioff, the second movie would be Ryan, third movie would be Benioff, so they alternate their. But there's no way they're going to put 4 years in between Benioff and Weiss's movies, as well as Ryan Johnson. I have a feeling. I mean, I know they say they want to take a break, but why wouldn't you do one a year and just do them every December? Like.
Maybe that's only the slate they know of currently, like what they've locked in. But it is interesting when you look at Disney's like full slate, and I didn't really even see they have like a ton of Marvel movies that are just like Marvel movie, a couple every year. But then for the December releases, currently it's starting in 20. Let's see. So the first Game of Thrones movie the first Star Wars movie by Benioff and Weiss is 2022, correct?
Correct.
So 2021 is Avatar sequel, and then every other year it's Star Wars Avatar in December until like 2026. Is that right?
That's right.
Okay. So that's
actually I think 2027 is the fifth Avatar movie.
Okay. So, I mean, I still am baffled that Avatar has that many sequels and that people will care at that point.
Yeah, well.
But I don't know. I mean, I think it is interesting that why they wouldn't want to compete with themselves.
You're right.
Disney, like in December.
Right. I think, I forgot about Avatar, so I think that I think we're only getting 3 Star Wars movies that in that time period.
Unless they can somehow, I know they tried it with Solo, but if they can get another movie slotted into May, and if they can break into that superhero release timeline right now, I know it's kind of, that's what owns, April, May, the summer right now is Marvel movies currently. But
okay, I'm gonna make a bold prediction right now.
Let's hear it.
I think Ryan Johnson's trilogy goes straight to Disney Plus.
Interesting. I like that prediction.
Yep.
If you told me Ryan Johnson and Benioff and Weiss were making 2 separate sets of movies or trilogies or whatever, or just a movie, I would have guessed that Benioff and Weiss's would have gone to Disney Plus because of their experience with HBO and television.
Agreed.
Which I'm still just a little confused by. I mean, I'm excited. I think it'll be interesting to see.
But I think the difference is Benioff, they're making a film now, not a series. So I think what I'm saying is I think Ryan Johnson they're going to be full-fledged movies. I think they're going to probably be lesser budgeted movies, but not lesser in a sense that it's only going to be like $50 million. I think you're talking about $100 million, $150 million movie still, but a little lower scale, but straight to Disney Plus to keep that subscription happening.
It would be cool because I know just from stuff that I've seen that Ryan Johnson's made, he kind of started making some independent movies, and he's worked in those budgets before.
Yes.
It would be really hard with Star Wars, and I guess they're learning how to with The Mandalorian make Star Wars with lower budgets, and that was George's whole problem when he wanted to do the TV series. Right.
That's right.
Was it just wasn't the cost wasn't there.
Right.
So that would be cool. It would be interesting to see how they're able to work with the whatever characters they make, whether it's future or Old Republic or whatever. I mean, it would be kind of cool to see like maybe a potentially more intimate story about a specific character or whatever that ends up being.
Right.
Interesting. I don't know.
Yeah. We'll have to mull that over a little bit because that's a big time it's a bold prediction based on budgets, because he had a big budget for Jedi, Last Jedi, and now I guess it just depends on what kind of story he's shaping out. So we'll see. All right, let's get to. Go ahead.
One quick thing before we move on is just like, I mean, is it pretty much a lock that Benioff and Weiss are making Old Republic Star Wars movie?
I totally think so.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's got to. I mean, just with their current experience in Game of Thrones, you literally just do Game of Thrones, but make it Star Wars.
I mean, I think we mentioned it. Like, yeah, I would like to see like that 1,000-year period where it transitioned into the Republic that we know about, from the old Republic to the Republic that has stood for 1,000 years. Like that transition, I think would be cool. But I'm starting to think, like right now, I'm 50-50 on that period, and then literally 3, 4, 5,000 years before, like to the Game of Thrones time when it's like things are just getting discovered, or the start of the Jedi and stuff like that. Like I would not be surprised if they went that far back. I
mean, yeah, what if you could use a lot of same sets? What if they go back to Octo?
Exactly.
The first Jedi temple, or the first Jedi.
Yes.
Would
absolutely.
Be really cool.
Yeah, totally. I think that would be awesome.
It would tie into The Last Jedi too.
Yeah, and I think Ryan's is going to be beyond Episode 9. I think his stuff is further down the road.
Like you're thinking future.
Future, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's possible. I could totally see him taking that character, Broom Boy, and just making a Broom Boy movie. I don't know if I'd be super excited about it.
Yeah,
but I could see.
I'm not sure anybody would be too excited about that. But all right, so let's spend some time on this prophecy. So let's like I said, our journey. We're talking about this connection from the previous saga films to Episode 9, kind of backing up the Master and Apprentice talk we were just doing. This novel contained, again, not giving away too much away, but this novel contained a lot about what is known as the prophecies. Now, from the movies, it was the prophecy, the chosen one. But as we come to learn in this book, there were actually many prophecies, and Qui-Gon was a big believer in them, a huge believer in the prophecies. He studied them extensively. His master, Dooku, was the one that introduced him to it.
I think that's really cool that we find out that Dooku is the one that got him into the prophecies.
We also learn of a previous Padawan that Dooku had, which is Rael Averross, I think his last name was, right? Is that what?
Yeah.
Rael Averross?
Yeah, Rael Averross.
So he was a contrast of that. He was introduced to the prophecies, but never really held any weight to them. But anyway, let's focus on, I feel like we'll definitely get into more of the prophecies at some point later, but right now I want to focus on what could ultimately be a big contributor to Episode 9, which is the Chosen One prophecy. Now, up until this novel, and I could be wrong out there, I never came across it. This is the first time we've actually gotten the full text of what the Chosen One prophecy says. Is that correct?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I mean, we've heard like the born of no father kind of thing and restoring balance to the Force.
Yes.
But that's kind of all I feel like we knew coming into this. So
I'm going to read it, and this is where we're going to have to start breaking this down a little bit. Again, this is not a spoiler. This is like really in the first third of the book. But Qui-Gon again reads out the actual Chosen One prophecy, and it goes like this. Only through sacrifice of many Jedi will the Order cleanse the sin done to the nameless. The danger of the past is not past, but sleeps in an egg. When the egg cracks, it will threaten the galaxy entire. When the Force itself sickens, past and future must split and combine. A chosen one shall come, born of no father, and through him will ultimate balance in the Force be restored. Whoa.
That's a lot.
Yeah. Whoa was not part of the prophecy. Whoa. Okay, so I mean, initial thought, what sticks out to you in those 4 sentences there?
Yeah, I mean, it's really cool. I mean, one thing is like I didn't realize, and you got to wonder like how they didn't see this coming, that the prophecy opens with only through the sacrifice of many Jedi will the Order cleanse the sin done to the Nameless. It's like, you know, it kind of just spells out what happens in Revenge of the Sith with Order 66.
Mm-hmm.
Now, obviously, you know, how would they have known that was coming?
Well, see, that's the thing.
But,
So that's the thing. Back up then. Do you think that we are seeing this played out in the Skywalker saga? Is the Skywalker saga a reflection or the actual realization of this prophecy?
I mean, I think so. I think what's hard is in this specific, the Chosen One prophecy, it's hard to know, you know, obviously what will tie in the Rise of Skywalker. But when you skip down a bit, when the Force sickens itself, past and future must split and combine. I mean, that is the part of it that every time I read, I just can't quite pinpoint where it fits into what we've seen in Star Wars. You know, the whole past and future part kind of baffles me because, you know, obviously it's looking forward to the future, but, you know, it says when the Force sickens itself, and then you think, okay, so what would sicken the Force? Does that mean the dark side? You know, is the dark, did it exist, or was it just a perversion of the light side? You know, that whole idea of good versus evil, which is very much a Star Wars theme. You know, was there evil before the good? Is balance good and evil balanced, or is balance just the light side?
Right.
That whole sentence kind of brings up a lot of those questions for me. And so I still can't quite even pinpoint it, but I just have a lot of these thoughts swirling about where, you know, this whole past and future, the fact that we're getting these Force backs and flashbacks, and the fact that, you know, now we have this Force projection power that Luke used, and Rey and Kylo can talk to each other through the Force. You know, there's this whole new aspect of the Force that I think, you know, we're still yet to fully realize, and maybe we'll see more of it in the next movie, but that's the part that really kind of stands out to me right now, at least.
Yeah, and it's confusing whether or not this prophecy is read chronologically, right? Because if you talk about the sacrifice of the Jedi being Order 66, you talk about the danger of the past is not past, but sleeps in an egg. When it cracks, you know, it threatens the galaxy entirely. I mean, that's kind of the Sith, maybe, you know, laying dormant for 1,000 years. And then it cracks, you know, being episode 1, basically. It cracks and finally reveals itself. The Force sickens, like you said. And then the last line is the Chosen One shall come. It's like, so, you know, the Chosen One, Anakin, is born, 9 years before episode 1, right? So he's born before all this happens. So I don't know or they're saying that he'll come after this, like he'll rise up after all this happens. You know, so obviously the only person we know of right now not born of a father is Anakin. We don't really know Rey, right? If she was born of no father. But it does say through him will ultimate balance, not through this person. You know, it's like it's clearly mentioning a male.
Be interesting to find the translation of the original text, because again, a little bit of crossover from Game of Thrones. They have prophecies that everyone thought were like the prince that was promised, and then it was really later translated in the show that it could also be the princess that was promised. That the the pronoun there or whatever could be.
But now
could
we
be
actually
either.
know who the prince is, right? Kind
Yeah.
of, in a sense.
Yeah,
Anyway,
I would think so. But I think those kind of themes, are used a lot in movies and other
yeah,
books and things like that, where you have these prophecies or these, these kind of a chosen one sort of character. I mean, I still really do feel like, obviously because it says him and it describes him to a T, that it's definitely Anakin.
yeah.
We know that Obi-Wan said he was supposed to be the chosen one, and then we know what happened in Return of the Jedi. But I think it's really interesting that there's parts of this prophecy that I don't know when they came to pass or if they've come to pass yet.
Right.
And if it's talking about future events, I don't know.
Well, okay, so I think the first sentence is, I mean, who is the nameless? Like, is that the Sith? I mean, it says only through sacrifice of many Jedi, but sacrifice doesn't necessarily mean love, or I mean, doesn't mean death. Could mean just sacrifice of their lives in dedication to the Jedi Order, right?
Right.
Only through sacrifice of many Jedi will the Order cleanse the sin done to the nameless. The sin done to the nameless. Like, what's nameless? I mean, people that aren't recognized, or
if I were to think who that could be is, sin done to the nameless. That would be, like
society.
Like the innocent people of the galaxy. So like who would have, could it be talking about the fact that the Jedi Order, didn't lead the people the way that they started out to do,
like they didn't get involved in the governing, really, in the politics. Is that what you mean?
Or the fact that they got too involved, I don't know, because, if this is talking about what happens in Order 66, if it is the sacrifice of many Jedi.
But see, I don't think that's a sacrifice. That's a massacre, right?
Yeah, that's true.
I feel like sacrifice is you're giving yourself for the greater good, right? Or you're sacrificing something in order to gain, or having something be done that's in good order, I guess. I don't know. You sacrifice. I don't know. That to me, only through sacrifice of many Jedi will the Order cleanse the sin done to the names. I mean, could that actually refer to the 1,000 years ago when that whole sacrifice of Jedi fighting that last Sith battle? Maybe that refers to that.
Could, yeah.
But then we're talking about different time periods where this prophecy could be referring to. The danger of the past, not the past, but sleeps in an egg. When the egg cracks, it will threaten the galaxy entire. I feel like that's Palpatine coming out. He's the one that finally cracks the egg and says, reveals. Well, I mean, Darth Maul said it. At last, we will reveal ourselves to the Jedi. I think it's like they've been sitting dormant all this time, and he's the one that says, "You know what? he's the one threatening the entire galaxy, right?"
Yeah. Well, and the danger of the past is not the past. Saying like, if you just replace past with Sith, the danger of the Sith from the past is not still in the past. It's the fact that the Sith lived on, and they're in the present. I think that if you think about Palpatine and the Sith in that way,
Very
especially
true.
if the line before it is talking about the older Jedi Order and the war that they fought, like you mentioned, I think it is flowing chronologically at that point.
Yeah. Right, very much so. And then when the Force itself sickens, past and future must split and combine. You were talking about that. I mean, that is a very confusing line. Itself sickens, past and future must split and combine. I mean, it's like, when I think of must split and combine past and future, it's almost like Yoda talking about past teachings and future teachings. Like something's got to change. Like we let things go, or we didn't do enough of something, so we've got to split it all and then come back and combine it to be the right teachings. And maybe that's what Rey is going to do. going forward.
Yeah, 1,000 generations of Jedi, live in you now.
Yes.
I think is what Luke says in the trailer.
Exactly. So maybe that's what that means. The Force sickens. Maybe that's because the dark side is taken over, throughout the Empire days, the dark times, and it's like maybe at that point the Force is sickened, and it took Luke to kind of start that again, and then of course the Force awakened again once Rey, started coming to power. So that could be that. That's the best I can think about at that point for that line. Then of course the last line being the chosen one that we've thought of. Now you mentioned, what does balance mean to the Force being restored? I mean, I don't know. I sometimes come back to balance being really about peace, about calmness, about being able to, use the Force like the Jedi used to in a sense and not be conflicted with, dark energy or dark. But that's what's crazy is that to think that for 1,000 years they thought that they were using nothing but the Force, but who knows how much of the dark side was actually out there, because of the Sith still. And whether or not that was imbalanced, I'm sure they felt like it was balanced, but maybe not. So I don't know. That's a hard definition. I don't even know if they know what it means.
Yeah, I mean, we all thought that it was balanced at the end of Return of the Jedi.
Yeah.
With light, defeating the dark side. And
right.
It's interesting now that we are in the sequel trilogy, you got to think that the Skywalker saga is still all about the same sort of themes, this battle of light versus dark, and this family's struggle through that, really. And the chosen one prophecy still continues and has ramifications now. And will Rey or someone else be a part of this restoring balance to the Force? I think
that's the ultimate question in this line. It says the chosen one through him. So that's pretty key to me. Through him, not him exactly, will ultimate balance be restored. So with that line there, through him, I mean, how much does that actually say that Anakin will be in Episode 9? Because I think he is. I think you got to put him in.
Yeah, I mean, definitely as we're looking at how to, I don't know if it was JJ that mentioned or somebody, I think he mentioned, trying to tie together all 3 trilogies, all 9 movies.
Right.
To tie them all together, I mean, it really all has to stem back to Anakin. If we're talking about the Rise of Skywalker, we're talking about Skywalkers.
Yes.
Luke has been present and a part of this trilogy already in the original trilogy. But you got to think that we've talked about this a couple times. How many people in the galaxy actually know that Anakin defeated, or so we thought, killed Palpatine?
Yes. Yeah, agreed. I think he's got to play. And that's again this connection from one. This is ultimately this is the ultimate connection to me from 1 to 9 is bringing Anakin back, is somehow, and especially now when I read that line, it's like it's not the chosen one is not. It's not saying the chosen one is the one that brings balance to the Force. It's through him that balance will be restored. So it's not. It's through, again, the line is through him will ultimate balance of the Force be restored. So it's not saying that. So again, the line in Episode 1, 2, and 3 that we keep hearing is that he will come to destroy the Sith. That's what ObiWan says, right? Isn't he the one that's supposed to come and destroy the Sith? It doesn't say anything in there about destroying the Sith.
Right. They just interpret it that way.
Totally. Right? So obviously it probably means overcoming and defeating the dark side or suppressing the dark side enough to where there's balance in the Force, So again, there's a lot of meaning to what that can mean, but ultimately it's through him. So maybe it's again, I keep thinking more of a spiritual thing than, Force Ghost. Maybe there is some kind of like, I hate to say it, I don't know, but some kind of possession that Anakin becomes Rey for a while. I don't know. It's like, I'm not ready to go down that path yet, but that's kind of what I'm thinking. But ultimately, he's got to contribute to this restoration of the Force.
And that's just still, I mean, you were kind of talking about it. Is it overcoming the dark side? But I was just thinking while you were bringing that up about Luke's comment in he's teaching Rey in The Last Jedi, and he's telling her to reach out. What do you see or what do you feel? And I think he talks about like the powerful light, the powerful dark,
yes.
like the balance.
Yes.
I think he even says the word like the balance.
He does.
And it's just so interesting when you think about where we're at now with Rey, Kylo. We do have this, awakening on in the light side and the dark side of the Force.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously, because of the way they've painted these two characters, I think they are going to both be necessary. I don't know that it's just going to be Rey defeating Kylo is going to be the end of the movie. And we know that Palpatine's involved, so it can't just be that simple. So why did they have Kylo go down this dark path? Is it for a reason? Do you need this powerful light and powerful dark to be able to overcome something else? Or, I'm not sure where they're going with the story yet, but yeah.
It's phenomenal.
I think it's cool that this idea of the chosen one and through him, through Anakin, we're still going to see the potential restoration of the Force in this movie, in The Rise of Skywalker. I think that was a good observation you had, that it says through him. I didn't even really catch it.
Yeah. I didn't really catch it till I read it like 5 more times. It's like, when you start breaking down every word and looking at what the meanings are, I mean, yeah, it totally makes sense that the Jedi, like Yoda and them, were misinterpreting it. It's like there's subtle words in there, and it can mean so many different things. And so again, Mace Windu says in episode 1, right? You refer to the prophecy of the one that were being balanced to the Force. He's not going to, it says right there, he's not the one that brings balance, but it's through him that balance is restored. So it's like he's contributing, but he's not maybe the ultimate. I don't know. It's crazy. It's a big proponent to what this whole saga has been about. And I love the fact that if it is truly about the Chosen One, which we were introduced with in episode 1, it's got to somehow tie up that story in episode 9, and I think it will. I think it really will. So,
I agree completely.
Yeah. So more on that to come. Obviously, we've got a long way to go. Still, we are. What is it? May now. So we're 7 months away to the release of episode 9, The Rise of Skywalker. December 20th, 2019, which is a mere 218 days away. That's all. 218 days.
It's not long.
Not long at all. I mean, for real, it's not long at all. I mean, it's almost summer now. By the time we blink, it'll be, back to school for my kids, and then it'll be Christmas. Or not Christmas, I'm sorry. There'll be Halloween, there'll be Thanksgiving, and then bam. Star Wars. And then, of course, November. I mean, like we said earlier, gosh, how much stuff is coming in November?
Going to be struggling to read all the books before the movie.
Yeah, play the game, watch Mandalorian. It's like, man, it's going to be crazy. It's a crazy year. So, last thing before we say goodbye, we are recording this on the 14th. So, a very, very happy birthday to the maker, George Lucas. It is his birthday today. A lot of people on social media wishing him happy birthday. So, course, he listens to us, so we just want to, hey, George, happy birthday.
Happy birthday, George.
No, I mean, I think I speak for both of us to say that, I'm indebted to him for what he's done. And, the fact that we get to sit here and I sit here and talk to my family and my friends about Star Wars. It's just, my kids now, getting into it. It's like, I mean, it's a phenomenal thing that what he started, and it's hard to measure it. I feel like, so I don't know. It's amazing, and I don't think he gets enough credit for it. Hopefully, one day it'll come to that. But I mean, I don't know. I don't know what you can say about it, but I have the utmost respect and cannot fathom my life without Star Wars.
Yeah, I mean, well, that's the coolest thing is like even now that he's sold, his creation and his company to Disney, we don't know how much involvement, but we know that there's quotes that JJ and Kathy Kennedy met and talked with George about the story of Episode 9 before starting out to it. And I think none of us, at least I didn't see the whole Emperor laugh, coming in the trailer. Just that simple little addition makes me think that, there's clearly going to be a lot of callbacks to stuff that happened in the prequels and in the original trilogy with the Emperor. And that's obviously all stuff that George created.
Agreed.
And, all these characters, really, and everything, that he made. So it's really it's crazy how it just keeps on going.
Yeah.
And there's just so many stories you can mine from this one galaxy where there's there really are infinite number of stories you can tell. Because he did such a good job of world building and of creating this myth that was, timeless.
Yeah. And it was, and the smart thing too was he didn't start the thing in the beginning of this galaxy where exploration was still part of it. Like everything has been technically explored. So you have all these thousands of different worlds that you can tell stories on. So it's, like you said, it's endless. I mean, it can go on forever. And still hold that relevance, So it's awesome. It's an awesome time. Cody, thanks for coming on, man. Thanks for being back.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
We will continue our journey. I think we'll probably maybe focus one more on episode 1 a little bit until we make that transition. But at some point, we'll make that transition, start focusing on the stuff that happens in episode 2, namely Count Dooku, which we've both realized has a big backstory and a major contribution to this saga. So, and one of my favorite characters, Asajj Ventress, is in that book as well. So, of course, that she gets introduced in the Clone Wars. So we'll talk a little bit about that too as we move on. But thanks everybody. Have a great rest of your week. We will be back next week. You doing a quote again? You gonna do a quote?
I don't have a quote pool.
Oh,
sorry.
Okay. All right, that's fine. We'll leave that. We'll leave that for Casey next time. Thanks, everybody. He's Cody Geiler.
See y'all.
Thanks, everybody. May the Force be with you.